For 15 years, a silent but profound revolution has been steadily growing in the shadows of the global economy. It began at a moment of supreme fragility. While governments were busy printing unprecedented amounts of money and central banks were aggressively manipulating interest rates to save a crumbling infrastructure, the global financial system was continuing its slow, inevitable descent into chaos. Yet, unnoticed by the masses, something extraordinary was emerging in the digital realm. An alternative to the collapsing fiat system was being quietly constructed. This new system was unique in human history. It possessed no leaders to arrest, no corporate offices to raid, and no marketing department to spin its narrative. It exists nowhere and everywhere simultaneously, residing on thousands of computers across the globe. It cannot be stopped because there is no central heart to attack. It cannot be controlled because there is no central authority to corrupt. It stands as arguably the most revolutionary technology since the invention of the internet itself. It represents not just the future of money, but the answer to centuries of broken financial promises and the only viable hope for a structurally sound tomorrow. The origin of this revolution can be traced back to a single, unassuming document, a white paper published in late 2008 by an anonymous entity known only as Satoshi Nakamoto. The timing of this release was certainly no accident. As the Titan Lehman Brothers collapsed and the world watched in horror as the greatest financial crisis since the Great Depression unfolded, a solution was quietly released into the wild. Unlike the heavy-handed responses from governments, this solution required no taxpayer bailouts, no central bank interventions, and no emergency liquidity measures. It was built on a foundation of pure mathematics and code. It was a vision of what money could become if it were finally severed from the chains of central authority. A dream of a financial system that served the people rather than the institutions. It was a mere idea, contained in a few pages of text, but it was the spark destined to ignite a global revolution and reshape civilization. This phenomenon is called Bitcoin. But we must ask ourselves a critical question. Is this digital currency, born out of the ashes of the 2008 disaster, truly the solution to 5,000 years of flawed monetary history? For centuries, humanity has embarked on a quest for the perfect medium of exchange. We have experimented with seashells. We have traded with precious metals like gold. We have utilized paper certificates backed by that gold. And finally, we have settled on paper backed by nothing more than full faith and credit. Regrettably, each of these systems has eventually failed or been debased. Every single iteration has ultimately been corrupted by those who held the power to control the supply. Bitcoin represents a fundamental departure from this cycle of failure. It is the first form of money in history that cannot be corrupted by human nature because it is not governed by human whims. It is governed by the rigid, unbreakable laws of mathematics. It is honest by design, offering a neutrality that no central bank can promise. It is the first money that is truly free and belongs to everyone who uses it. To truly understand why Bitcoin matters, we must look beyond the hype and understand the mechanics that make it different. The system rests on three fundamental pillars. These are not mere marketing slogans. They are the mathematical and cryptographic foundations that render Bitcoin revolutionary. These three attributes explain why it cannot be replicated by governments, controlled by commercial banks, or destroyed by hostile regulation. The first and perhaps most critical pillar is absolute scarcity. In our current fiat system, money can be printed infinitely at the discretion of central bankers. When a crisis hits, the supply expands, devaluing every unit in circulation. Bitcoin, conversely, is mathematically limited to a hard cap of 21 million coins. There will never be 22 million. There will never be even one fraction of a coin more than the protocol allows. This limit is hard-coded into the software itself. No amount of political pressure, no emergency presidential decree, and no marketing department can alter this fact. For the first time in human history, we have achieved a verifiable digital scarcity. Historically, we have understood that scarcity creates value.
Gold became the global standard because it is difficult to extract and limited in quantity. Real estate is valuable because they are not making any more land. But until now, we have never had a digital asset that was truly scarce. Digital files can usually be copied infinitely. Bitcoin solved this. We now have an asset that can be transmitted instantly across the world like an email, verified instantly by anyone, and yet remains as scarce or as scarcer than gold. This technological breakthrough changes the economic landscape entirely. It is the primary reason why Bitcoin is on a trajectory to become the premier store of value in the world, serving effectively as digital gold for the digital age.
The second pillar is decentralization. Bitcoin operates without a central office, a CEO, or government oversight. Instead, the network is maintained by thousands of independent computers, known as nodes, scattered across the globe. These nodes are operated by a diverse group of individuals, companies, and organizations, each acting in their own self-interest, yet securing the network for everyone. This structure creates incredible resilience. If a natural disaster takes down nodes in one continent, the network continues without interruption. If a hostile government bans Bitcoin and shuts down miners in one country, the network simply migrates and continues elsewhere. This architecture makes Bitcoin censorship-resistant and virtually impossible to kill. It is not a company that can be bankrupted or a person who can be silenced. It is a distributed network. In systems theory, this is known as being anti-fragile. It is a system that not only withstands attacks, but demonstrates that it cannot be stopped by force. It represents the power of distributed consensus over centralized coercion. The third pillar is immutability. Every transaction ever made on the Bitcoin network is recorded on the blockchain, a public ledger that is constantly verified by the entire network. Once a transaction is confirmed and buried under subsequent blocks of data, it becomes mathematically impossible to reverse, censor, or alter. This provides an ultimate form of truth and transparency in finance that the traditional world lacks. In the legacy banking system, a bank can freeze your account due to an error or political pressure. A government can seize your funds. A transaction can be reversed days later. A central bank can effectively rewrite the value of your labor by diluting the currency. With Bitcoin, once a transaction is confirmed, it is final. While the mainstream media often portrays this as a feature useful only for criminals, the reality is the opposite. This is a feature for freedom. It protects those who have been betrayed by their own governments, those whose savings have been confiscated, and those who have been shut out of the financial system. It is a tool for truth, justice, and the protection of private property rights. These three pillars, scarcity, decentralization, and immutability, constitute a fundamental shift in the nature of money. We have moved from money backed by government decree to money backed by mathematics and energy. We have transitioned from money that requires trust in fallible politicians to money that requires trust only in verifiable code. This is money that is honest by design, immune to human weakness, and truly owned by the bearer. In our previous discussions, we analyzed how fiat money inevitably leads to inflation. The political incentive is always to print more money to pay for debts and promises. The printing presses never stop, and the debt spiral never ends. The result is that the purchasing power of your hard-earned money decreases year after year. Your savings are silently stolen through the invisible tax of currency debasement. Bitcoin offers the antidote to this systemic theft. Because the supply is fixed, the only variable that can change is price, driven by demand. As adoption spreads, as more individuals, corporations, and eventually nations use it as a store of value, the value must increase to accommodate that capital. Bitcoin is inherently a deflationary asset, which flips the incentives of the current economy. In a fiat world, saving is punished because cash loses value. You are forced to speculate in the stock market or real estate just to keep up. In a Bitcoin world, saving is rewarded. Your purchasing power tends to increase over time as the network grows. You are no longer running on a hamster wheel trying to outpace inflation. You are riding the wave of global adoption. This represents the greatest wealth transfer in human history, allowing you to build a future, secure a legacy, and protect your family from the financial mismanagement of the state. Furthermore, Bitcoin grants you a superpower that was previously impossible: the ability to be your own bank. In the traditional system, your money is technically a liability of the bank. You are a creditor. If the bank fails, or if the government orders a freeze, you lose access to your wealth. Bitcoin removes the counterparty risk. All you need is your private key, a complex string of numbers and letters known only to you. With this key, you have absolute sovereign control over your wealth. You can send value to anyone, anywhere in the world, at any time, without asking for permission or waiting for business hours. You can memorize this key, allowing you to cross borders with your wealth stored entirely in your mind. This is the definition of true financial freedom. For the first time, you do not need to trust a bank to be solvent or a government to be benevolent. You only need to trust the code and your own ability to secure your key.
For us in the developed world, this might seem like an investment opportunity, but for billions of people in developing nations, Bitcoin is a literal lifeline. In countries ravaged by hyperinflation, places like Venezuela, Lebanon, or Zimbabwe, where the local currency can lose half its value in a month, Bitcoin provides a sanctuary. It allows ordinary people to preserve the fruits of their labor in a currency that their local dictator cannot debase. It allows the diaspora to send money home to their families without being gouged by the predatory fees of remittance companies. It allows the unbanked, those whom the legacy banking system deems unprofitable, to participate in the global economy. They don't need a passport or a credit score. They just need a smartphone. In this context, Bitcoin is a humanitarian tool. It is financial inclusion, hope for the hopeless, and freedom for the oppressed. We must also address the common criticism regarding the environment. Critics often point out that Bitcoin uses a vast amount of energy. This is true, but it is a necessary expenditure to secure the most valuable network on Earth without a central authority. Moreover, this energy consumption is misunderstood. Bitcoin miners are essentially scavengers of wasted energy. They set up operations near hydroelectric dams that produce more power than the local grid can consume, or at oil fields where natural gas is being flared into the atmosphere. By monetizing this stranded energy, Bitcoin mining is actually driving innovation in renewable energy infrastructure and making power grids more robust and efficient. The narrative that Bitcoin is an environmental villain is largely a distortion, often pushed by the very institutions that benefit from the current fiat system, a system that, incidentally, relies on the petrodollar and military enforcement. The anti-Bitcoin energy narrative is a smokescreen designed to slow down the adoption of decentralized money. This revolution is not one of violence or coercion. It is a peaceful revolution of choice. Every time you choose to convert your fiat into Bitcoin, you are casting a vote. You are voting for a system based on honesty, transparency, and mathematical verification. You are opting out of a rigged game where the rules are changed to benefit the few. You are saying no to inflation, no to manipulation, and no to the state's control over your economic energy. Conversely, you are saying yes to sovereignty and sound money. You are joining a growing global movement of millions who have decided to take responsibility for their own future. However, we must be clear, freedom comes with a heavy burden of responsibility. Being your own bank means there is no customer service department to call if you make a mistake. If you lose your private key, your wealth is gone forever. If you send funds to the wrong address, the transaction cannot be reversed. This is the price of true sovereignty. It requires education, caution, and a maturity that the nanny state has tried to breed out of us. But for those willing to accept this responsibility, the rewards are immense. The freedom is absolute, and the future is entirely in your hands. Bitcoin functions as a bridge,
leading us from a crumbling, debt-based past to a more honest financial future. It offers us the unique chance to rebuild the foundation of global commerce on sound principles. This peaceful revolution is not a distant dream. It is happening right now, block by block, all around the world. People are not waiting for government permission or bank approval. They are simply opting in. They are voting with their wallets for a better world, creating history and building tomorrow with every transaction. The central question of our time is no longer, what is money? The question has evolved to, what kind of money do we wish to use? Do we want money that is controlled by a small elite behind closed doors, or money that is controlled by an open, neutral code? Do we prefer money that can be printed into infinity, destroying our savings, or money with absolute, verifiable scarcity? Do we want a system that demands blind trust in institutions that have repeatedly failed us, or a system that requires only trust in mathematics? Do we want to continue down the path of debt, inflation, and financial servitude? Or are we brave enough to embrace a new system based on sound principles? The choice is yours to make, and the power is in your hands. In the final installment of this series, we will look ahead to the ultimate showdown, the coming conflict between central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, and Bitcoin. This will be the battle between total surveillance and control versus privacy and freedom. It is the definitive struggle for the future of money, and indeed the future of individual liberty. Make no mistake, this is about far more than just currency and economics. It is about the structure of society and the future of civilization itself. It is the most significant decision humanity will face in the 21st century. The time to choose is now. The revolution is here. Bitcoin is the answer.